Today we are at the Capital hosted by CoinMarketCap at the Victoria Theatre, diving deep into the Bitcoin scalability issue with Samson Mow, the Chief Strategy Officer of Blockstream. So Samson, thank you so much today for having us to share with us about more of the Blockstream initiative on Lightning Network and Liquid Network. So before that, can you share with us like your journey, your crypto journey, and also like how did you get into Blockstream?
Sure. So I guess I first heard about Bitcoin in 2013 or so. I was just reading the news and I figured out this is very interesting because it's like a game currency that no one controls. Because actually at the time I was building games. After that I worked at BTC China, cryptocurrency exchange and mining pool, as a COO there. And then after that decided to join Blockstream and work on more of the infrastructure layer.
Okay, so what makes you like joining? What makes you feel interested into like Blockstream in like having a more in-depth like career path on try to like improving the infrastructure layer of Bitcoin? So what are the limitations for Bitcoin that you realize that you try to decide to pursue the career in Blockstream?
So I think Blockstream does a lot of very interesting things. Blockstream does a lot of protocol level work, like working on Bitcoin protocol itself, building second layer solutions and ways that we can scale Bitcoin. So I felt that it's beneficial to Blockstream if I join them because I'm good with product, marketing, and business, which is traditionally what Blockstream is weaker at because Blockstream is largely an engineering-driven organization, very heavy on engineers, mathematicians, cryptographers, and those kind of roles.
Okay, so we know that Blockstream has a lot of like Bitcoin scalability enhancement over the years. So taking a step back, so can you share with us like what makes Bitcoin have such a slow transaction speed?
Right. So people like to say Bitcoin has 7 transactions a second, but I think it misses the point. It's typically altcoins that make this argument, and they make that argument and criticism because they have their own blockchain or altcoin that has 20 or 30 or 50 transactions a second. But ultimately, if you understand how a blockchain works, it's not very conducive to doing fast transactions because the network needs to keep in sync. The reason why we have a limit on transactions a second is really because we have 10-minute block times. So when you calculate how many transactions you fit into a block, that kind of works out to 7 a second based on 10-minute blocks. And other blockchains can amp that up a bit, but it really doesn't move the needle because what you really need is hundreds of thousands of transactions a second for a payment network. So the way to think about it correctly is Bitcoin was designed to be a tank. And these other projects are selling you a bicycle, but it's 2 different roles. The bicycle will go faster than a tank, of course. But if you get shot with a bazooka on a bicycle, you'll die. Whereas the tank can protect you because it's heavily armored. So it's basically conflating 2 things, a payment system with a settlement system. And Bitcoin is a settlement system.
Okay, so look into the 2 key initiatives of Blockstream on Bitcoin scalability products, so the Lightning Network and the Liquid Network. So first, before to diving deep into these 2 protocols, that network, can you share with us the key differences between the 2?
Right, so Liquid is a Bitcoin sidechain. It is still a blockchain. And I guess I should explain what Liquid is. It is a Bitcoin sidechain, and what that means is it's a blockchain that does not have its own native currency. So the native currency of Liquid is still Bitcoin, but in another format, which is Liquid Bitcoin. And it does have blocks, so it's still a blockchain, whereas Lightning does not have a blockchain per se. It's purely peer-to-peer. You connect to people that you need to connect to and route through the network. So it's very different from, say, Liquid. And the benefits of Lightning is that the transactions are nearly instantaneous and almost free. So with Liquid, you don't have that because it is a blockchain. And even though we do have faster blocks, we have 1-minute blocks, we still need to keep the network in sync. So there is a limit there. Whereas Lightning, there is no limit to how big the network can grow to.
Okay, that's pretty sums up the key difference between the 2. So let's talk a bit more on the Lightning Network. So Lightning Network is the second layer solution on Bitcoin scalability. So can you share with us in more details on how Lightning Network works, and also its role in terms of how does that Lightning Network interact with the Bitcoin's blockchain?
Right, so the Lightning Network, I guess the easiest way to conceptualize it for the average person is it's like a bar tab. So if you go to a bar and you want to have some drinks that night, you'll give them your credit card and open a tab. So they don't charge you and have you sign every single drink you order. You settle at the end of the night. So Lightning is essentially that. It's aggregating transactions. You open a channel to somebody and you can route through other people through that channel, or you can also transact directly with them by opening a channel. But you don't need to broadcast all of your transactions to the blockchain, because that would clutter up the blockchain. It would be ineffective, and it would slow down everything for everyone else if everyone broadcasts every transaction to the blockchain. So we've seen that in the past when things get clogged because there's too many transactions and the price goes up. But a lot of those transactions are not really necessary. Like if you buy a cup of coffee, you don't need to put that in the Bitcoin blockchain. Yeah. So the way Lightning works is you open a channel, and when you open and close a channel, those are on-chain transactions. But everything else in between is off-chain. So you have cost savings and faster transactions.
Okay, so to just also wondering if Lightning Network can be implemented in other blockchains like Ethereum or any other digital asset protocols?
Theoretically, yes. I think Ethereum has a concept of the Lightning Network. They call it Plasma. But I'm not sure why you would need that, because Ethereum is not money. It's not supposed to be money. It's just a speculative gas for their own network. It makes sense for any blockchain or cryptocurrency that is purporting to be money, so it makes sense for Bitcoin. Because if the main layer is for settlement, then you need a layer for spending and using Lightning to do so quickly.
Okay.
But also, you can actually have a Lightning Network running on top of Liquid. So we actually have it implemented on Liquid, running on Liquid Bitcoin. But for Liquid, you can actually issue different assets in the Liquid network. So we have Liquid Tether. Tether is in the network. We have a Japanese yen stablecoin and several others. But technically, if each of those has enough liquidity, like a lot of people have USDT in Liquid, then you could create a Lightning Network on top of USDT.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. So, taking a step back. So, what do you think? Like, why micro payments, like transaction payments, cannot work in a traditional financial system?
I think it largely has to do with cost. You can do small transactions on Visa. You can do like dollar, sub-dollar payments, but what it comes down to is the cost. So they take a fee of 3 to 5%. Because it's merchant processing. So it doesn't really make sense if you want to do like machine-to-machine payments. You don't want a 5% tax on very, very small payments. And I guess it depends on what your definition of micropayment is. If it's sub-cent, then definitely it doesn't make sense, right? But technically with the credit cards, you could do micropayments if you say it's like under $1. But I think it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because the whole traditional financial system is it's very clunky, it's very old, and even interbank transfers don't work well. So it's not really feasible to do these kind of payments on that network.
Okay, so I think for the Lightning Network, it seems that it has shown a tremendous growth like in the first year of launch. So, but this year the growth seems slowed down in different, let's say, Lightning Network statistics websites. So what's the case behind? Does it really mean like Lightning Network the adoption pace has been slowed down, or if there's any other reason for that?
Well, I think there's a few things. One is, if you're looking at the amount of Bitcoin in Lightning Network, the number of Bitcoin has gone down, but the price has gone up since the Lightning Network was more or less launched. So, the dollar value, I think, is up. But, people are using Lightning to pay for things, and they need to close the channels eventually, and they want to move Bitcoin to cold storage, right? They don't want to leave it online. So that was another key difference between the Lightning Network and Liquid. So with Liquid, you can have hot and cold wallets, but Lightning wallets are always hot. They're always online, so your keys are technically exposed. But as people are receiving money through Lightning, they're going to close out channels and cash out, right? The other thing is we have private channels now. So not all the channels are public, which is better for privacy for Lightning users. But what that also means is that you can't monitor the network statistics with 100% certainty that that's how much value there is on the network, or that is how many channels we have on the network. So I guess moving forward, you can look at those sites with metrics on the Lightning Network as an indicator, but you'll never really know how big the Lightning Network is because a lot of it will be private.
Yeah, true. I think in terms of maybe the number of Bitcoin transacted like during the network can be kind of approximately a indicator, despite there's a lot of private transactions going on. So moving forward, let's talk about on the liquid network side, and like so before we dive it a little bit deeper in that, like can you share with us like some for less technical readers, what are the key difference for sidechain and state channel?
State channels or state chains?
State chains. Maybe.
Okay, so state chains is a proposal, I think, from Ruben Samson.
Yep.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Right. So that is basically using UTXOs to move things off-chain.
Yep.
But Liquid is actually still a blockchain. So it's a federated blockchain with known block signers that are generating the blocks. So we still have a federation that is securing the network, that is running essentially a multi-sig wallet. So when you move funds into Liquid, you lock them up on the main chain and you unlock them in Liquid. So that's why you only have a one-to-one relationship. It's only going to be 21 million Liquid Bitcoins, just like there are 21 million potential Bitcoin. So it's a bit different of a model. And for Liquid, you're still making transactions like you would on the Bitcoin network. You still send Bitcoins as usual. It's just on a different blockchain now.
Okay, so learning about more on the Liquid network. So what's the magic behind Liquid network to facilitate like instant fund settlement in the crypto exchanges? So what's the role of Liquid Bitcoin and the Blockstream's confidential transaction technology in facilitating the whole process?
Right, so transactions in Liquid are not instant. We have 1 minute block times with 2 minute full finality. So in 2 minutes, you can basically expect your transaction won't be reversed, but there is a possibility of a reorg in 1 minute. So that's why we say use 2 minutes. So there is a time required for transacting on Liquid. As you mentioned, there is a benefit to using Liquid, which is confidential transactions. And that's essentially, you cannot see how much is being sent to someone else. It's blinded, and then it helps prevent things like front running. So if you're sending Liquid Bitcoin to another exchange, people can't monitor the Liquid blockchain and say, okay, you're sending 100,000 coins, I'm going to go and trade against you there. So there's a lot of benefit for traders, and we're positioning Liquid more as a network for traders. So traders moving funds from exchange to take advantage of arbitrage, or just to move their coins, collect their coins in one place to trade, that's stuff that is good for a trader. So moving Bitcoin fast is why you would use Liquid, potentially.
Okay, so I think we can also like talk a little bit more that what you have slightly mentioned earlier on the C Lightning, also the Lightning network built on the Liquid network. So for these two networks, what are the technical capabilities for these to work together?
Well, because Liquid is built off of Elements, it's a fork of Bitcoin. So both Liquid and Elements is our blockchain building platform. Yep. They're both Bitcoin forks. So anything that works with Bitcoin can work with Liquid and by extension Elements. But C Lightning is our Lightning implementation. So that's one of the early main Lightning clients. We've got that working with Liquid right now. And to get it working with Liquid assets, we just have to make some changes, because if you're dealing with Lightning, it's just Bitcoin, right? If you're dealing with a Liquid asset, you need to do two things, which is handle the Liquid Bitcoin part for opening, closing channels, and the asset that you're transacting in the channel. So we still have some R&D to do to get it working with Liquid assets, but potentially sometime next year we can have that running.
Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about more on the initiative of Blockstream afterwards. So after Liquid network, Lightning network, so any exciting protocol coming up?
Well, we're building a lot of tools. So if you're following Blockstream development, we have Mini Script, which is an improved version of Bitcoin Script. We have someone working on smart contracts in Bitcoin, Simplicity. That's a smart contracting language. It'll probably be available in Liquid first, then maybe if people want it, it'll be available in Bitcoin. And for other interesting Blockstream projects, we have Blockstream Mining, which we announced a couple months ago. So we are making a play for Bitcoin infrastructure for the mining level. So we have 300 megawatts between our two facilities in Canada and the US. and we're rapidly expanding.
Okay, so in terms of the Blockstream mining, like given that there are some of the mining giants out there like Bitmain, so what's the positioning for Blockstream mining to gain a foothold in the market?
Right, so we are actually a hosting provider. So we're not making ASICs or Bitcoin miners. We will host for customers. So some of our larger customers include Fidelity and Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn. So we're building the farm where you would host your machines. And we can help them to procure the ASICs as well, but we're not actually competing with the manufacturers that are making the ASICs right now.
Okay, so regarding the future of Bitcoin scalability, do you think like on-chain technologies, scalability or off-chain will play a more important role in terms of improving Bitcoin's scalability?
Right, so scalability I think is multifaceted, and a lot of people try to pigeonhole scalability as bigger blocks, but that's a dead end. You can't just keep making the blocks bigger because the network has to keep in sync. So we are always making improvements at the Bitcoin base layer, layer 1, but you also need layer 2 as well to get Bitcoin to everyone in the world. So for Lightning, we've done some calculations, and I think one channel can have a theoretical maximum of 500 transactions a second. So if you multiply that out by the number of channels in the network, it's like 18 million transactions a second. So that is the only way that you can scale a blockchain to planetary level transaction processing, right? But at the base layer, I think there's always improvements coming out. There's been optimizations, for the past several years. So if you sync the Bitcoin blockchain now, it's actually much, much faster than if you synced a version from, say, 5-6 years ago.
Okay, so we knew that like even though that's the launch of Lightning Network, so for Bitcoin to be a mainstream payment method, it still has a long way to go compared with the existing ones. So and also people are viewing Bitcoin exhibit the similar characteristics of gold. It's more like a digital gold. So what's your take on Bitcoin and in his role? Do you think Bitcoin can really like become the future payment channel mainstream in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're seeing rapid growth in Bitcoin adoption already. And with Lightning, it's becoming more and more relevant and prevalent everywhere we go. I think all it takes is some point of sale terminal operator to integrate Lightning, and then you essentially can have Bitcoin payments everywhere. And we've seen some of those. So I think there have been a few point of sale terminals that have integrated Bitcoin payments. And I think Bakkt is working with Starbucks on something too. So it's all coming, and it's just a matter of time. I think within the next 5 years, we'll see mass availability of Lightning payments.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sam, for sharing your insights on the state of adoption of Bitcoin in terms of the scalability improvement and also liquid network and Lightning Network, the current development and future and beyond. So thank you so much, Samson, for your time, and we are at the Capital by CoinMarketCap. More interviews to come.
Okay, thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.